Hello, welcome to Allergy Dragon's Lair podcast. My name is Martha Morgan. I'm your host. I happen to have a celiac disease, a couple food allergies, and I am a specialty diet and allergy chef. My biggest claim to fame is raising a child to adulthood with over 30 food allergies and celiac disease. Now, on Allergy Dragon's Lair podcast, we like to focus on everybody's individual stories and really, interview awesome people doing awesome things in their lives and also helping out this community that we live, eat, breathe, and serve literally. But before we jump into this episode, a quick disclaimer. The views expressed here on our show are our personal opinions and our guests' life's experiences. We're not healthcare providers or doctors, however, some of my guests are. Please seek advice from your healthcare professional for any diagnoses or changes to your healthcare plan. So I'm really excited about this episode, and I know I pretty much say that every single time, but I really am thankful to everyone that listens and takes time to actually be on the show as well. I'm going to introduce my next guest. Her name is Meg Nohe, and I may have butchered that. Did I butcher it, Meg?
Oh, you got it.
I got it. Woohoo! Okay, so Meg here, real quick, is an allergy mom. Lives with her own set of food allergy sensitivities and things. Is the CCO of Amulet, which has different brands called Allergy Amulet and Amulet Scientific, which I'm going to let her explain because who can tell your own story better than obviously yourself. So do you take the time to introduce yourself and kind of tell us about what you do?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. I love sharing my story and meeting like-minded, experienced people in the space. So I have a daughter who is almost 12 who has life-threatening food allergies to peanuts and all tree nuts except almond. I myself have food intolerances to dairy, citrus, and gluten, and I've worked professionally in the food allergy space for approximately 8 years. So I live it and breathe it every day.
As we all, or at least most people listening to this podcast, right? So you happen to be the CCO of Allergy Amulet, but before we kind of go into that, because I really would like to know, to share exactly what you do there, can you go into a little bit more detail about, your food tolerances, your own journey in this allergy space as an allergy mom and that kind of thing?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll back up. When my daughter was born over 11 years ago, we had no experience in our family with food allergies. She was having like a lot of parents have experienced, she was having kind of strange symptoms. It didn't start with an anaphylactic reaction. It started when she was a baby with really upset tummies, really abnormal stools. We went through all the protocols of removing dairy and soy from my diet and all these different things the pediatrician was trying. And at the end of all of that, she said, well, I think this is how she poops. And I remember thinking, I'm a really new mom. So I'm not, I think my first mom intuition those bells were kind of going off, but I chose to ignore them because I didn't trust my gut at the time. And so I just said, okay, well, the doctor knows best, maybe she's right. And we just kind of went along with things. So when she was a little over 1, she had a lot of the top 8 or top 9 major food allergens. She'd had exposure to a lot of them, but we hadn't tried nuts before because back then it was before the LEAP study was released that showed, children consistently eating early on in life and consistently eating peanut had a lesser likelihood of developing an allergy. That hadn't come out yet. So the protocol was still avoid the major allergens until after 1 year old. So at that point, when my daughter was 1, my husband and I at home one day decided to give her this soft granola bar that had some peanuts in it. And after we gave it to her a couple minutes later, she was coughing a little bit, but we were like, okay, well, she's eating solid foods. Maybe she just choked on a little bit of it for a second. Woo,
Mm-hmm.
no allergy to peanut. We can check that off. And then I didn't know enough to know what a reaction could look like. So fast forward a couple weeks, my mom was over at our house and she gave my daughter a dried cherry that had come out of a trail nut bag, like a trail mix that she had with her. And she ate that dried cherry. And within 3 minutes, the same hacking cough started happening. So at that point, those same alarm bells were going off, but I knew something was wrong. And so, fast forward a couple weeks, immediately got her in with the pediatrician and the allergist. We ran allergy testing and found out she was deathly allergic to peanuts and all tree nuts. and it rocked our world. I mean, we've had to manage health challenges and different things, but we'd never had to manage something like this. And I think, as you can probably relate to, you don't really have ramp up time with food allergies. You're sitting in the allergist's office for the first time and they're like, okay, avoid that food at all cost. Here's a prescription for emergency medicines, carry them with you at all times and go forth. And for me, there was so much fear and anxiety of knowing that there was a lot I didn't know, and also realizing that quickly that most of managing those fell outside of that, quick advice. After that happened, I ended up starting to volunteer in the food allergy advocacy space, really networking with the community in my city. And within a couple of years, my background was pharmaceutical and medical device, product launch and management and branding. And I really felt this calling to kind of shift career paths and use my background and do something in the space. Now, I didn't know exactly what that was going to be at the time, but I knew that was kind of where my career was headed. And so I ended up quitting my job, which was really kind of scary when you have, a steady job. And my husband was really encouraging. He's like, even if this doesn't become your end all be all, it'll lead you to the right thing. And so I became a certified aller coach, and I started a consulting business working with commercial kitchens and schools and restaurants and individuals on food allergy management best practices for that 90% of the time that's living life outside of the allergist's office. Mm-hmm. And that's what led me to where I am now at Amulet. And so it's definitely been a journey for us. Also during that time, I would say probably 3 or 4 years into that time, I was diagnosed with food sensitivities to dairy and citrus, which my mom also has, and she also developed later in life. Genetically, I seem to track quite a bit after my mom. And so it's always kind of the crystal ball of like what's coming. And then a couple of years after that, found out through some gut testing that I have a lot of inflammation in my body when I eat gluten. And so I have a gluten sensitivity as well. And I manage that now too.
But just a lot of things all at once. And I think that's a great way to look at it, where there's like no pause button, or no, it's just fast forward when you have an allergy. It just diagnosis. And especially if you've never had to deal with it before. We had the same, very similar thing. It was not, except ours was 9 months old, introducing solid foods, and it was a strawberry and went into anaphylaxis. And it was like fast forward for us. And we had no EpiPen, and then it's like, but we had never dealt with food allergies in the house or anything like that before. And I developed mine 26 years old was when I found out I had food allergies. And then I was 33 when I found out I had celiac disease. But the parallels between us allergy parents and looking at our kids and then seeing different things is amazing. And I would say me and my oldest sister, Cindy, we both have celiac disease. We both have food allergies. And what's weird is Vesper is kind of between both of us, but then has some that we never would have thought about being an allergy or anaphylactic to. And so it's weird because my sister Cindy is allergic to garlic, Vesper is anaphylactic to garlic, and then Cindy can't do ginger and peanuts and ginger. And so you start going, and it's like, I'm allergic to chocolate, Vesper's allergic to chocolate, I'm anaphylactic to chocolate. And there, it does suck, just in case anybody's listening and wondering. But
it does. I'm very sad for you for that.
Yeah. But it could always be worse. That's what I always tell people. It could always be worse, Yeah. What is cool about what you've had to go through and your journey is you haven't let it stop you. You have definitely been a driving force in the change that you see.
It's funny, what you said about chocolate, and you said, well, it could be worse, like, having an allergy to chocolate. It's funny because I feel the same way when people are like, your body doesn't like dairy. I'm so sorry. What do you eat? And I'm like, lots of great stuff. You just have to find the good alternatives that you really like. And, for me, having food allergies, while I would never choose for my daughter to have food allergies, and I would never choose for that to be something that my house has to manage, there are a lot of good things that have come out of it. and I really try, and that's part of the reason I started doing the consulting early on, because once I felt like I had kind of figured it out and I had gotten through those first couple of years of being a food allergy mom, I was like, okay, this is like anything else in life. It's not ideal, but it's just something that you have to manage. And once you figure it out and once you find the positives in any situation, like I just wanted to share that information and try to help other people maybe just get to that point a little bit faster or not feel quite so burdened with the weight of what that can mean when you get that diagnosis. And so again, I was like, I don't know where this is going to take me, but I know I just feel like I have to do this, and I'll land somewhere.
um, that need that we have almost to be the person that we needed to be, like we needed to have the person that we have become. And I think that that's kind of like a lot of us in the allergy space or allergy parents that have now made this our mission and our livelihood. I wanted to be the person that I didn't have really that was there because when we started our journey we didn't have Google. It was still dial up people. Let's just let
Yeah.
2002. And so it was like, oh man, I'm thankful I'm a chef. And so when we started adding on and changing, I was able to come up with these quick fixes and things like that, and I understood how to manage allergies, et cetera, et cetera. And but it was like, wouldn't it have been, what would I have done if I hadn't had these skill set? What would I have done? Where would I have gotten this knowledge? Who would I have
Right.
leaned on?
Right. And I'm also applauding you for navigating it before there were labeling laws and before there was a larger awareness, because I can only imagine, just that added layer of complication. I think about when my daughter was first diagnosed. So after she was diagnosed, the first reaction she had that landed us in the hospital was eating hummus. And immediately, since she had just been diagnosed, the allergist was like, okay, maybe there's an allergy we missed that we need to be testing for. Let's test for sesame. And at the time, I'm like, she's eaten hummus so many times. This doesn't make sense to me. But then she tested, in positive ranges for sesame. And so, again, not trusting my mom gut, they were like, okay, we're going to operate under the assumption she's allergic to sesame. And so, that was before sesame was part of the top 9 and had to be labeled for. And so, just the experience of navigating one allergy without that labeling and, worried about, is it hiding in natural flavors or spices or their own secret recipe, was really stressful. So I can only imagine when you didn't have that required labeling and having to navigate. I know you still navigate allergens outside of the top 9. I can imagine that's really challenging.
It definitely is. Yeah, and I want to bring up the fact that you said about your mom gut and how you kind of passed it off. I think it is so important for us as moms. And I think that that's one of the biggest things you can tell new moms is to trust your mom gut. Don't always just let that doctor second guess you, because I think we've all been there, especially as new moms. And it's just like, if you know something's wrong, nobody knows your baby or your child the way you do. So I love the fact that you bring that up and how you struggled with that, because not enough people do. A lot of people feel shame for having that, not that natural mom gut, or second guessing themselves. And we all do it because guess what? It's new, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think along with that, along with the not trusting my mom gut came, the mom guilt of, have I done enough? Was I patient enough today? Do they feel like you know what I mean? Like you go down this spiral of all the things that maybe you don't think you're doing well enough. But that's a whole other topic for another day. But I feel like so many moms need to just be told, you are doing great and you are enough and you are exactly what your child needs.
Yeah, exactly. No, I do. I just wanted to touch on that really quickly. But yes, it is absolutely difficult to manage uh, top 9 allergens. But anything outside the top 9 it ups the game another level, is what I like to call it. Um, when we first started, we had peanuts, tree nuts, and strawberries. Um, and that was at 9 months of age. And so as we've gone up and down this hill, And I've had my own intolerances, my own allergens. I was 26 when I found I was anaphylactic to chocolate. I can't do dairy either. It sucks. Um, so I can't eat meat, beef or pork. Um, my youngest is also allergic to pork. I have to have a PDF, by the way. A lot of people are like, is it really 30? And I'm like, it's over 30. And we stopped counting. But as we started growing, Vesper was able to not be allergic to, or outgrew their allergy to peanuts, and they don't know why. But luckily we did. We lost that one. But which people are like, but you still have 30. I'm like, yes, but we don't have to worry about peanut. Like, you don't understand if you don't live it. Like,
Yeah.
we were ecstatic. We don't have to worry cross contact. Vesper still does not eat peanuts directly because it freaks them out. I can't blame them, because I don't know how I would feel if I was, confirmed that I could eat them, but like they they used to like cause me harm. I don't know if I mentally could get over that either. So but yeah, it's a huge struggle. And I really want to ask questions about the really cool thing that is the allergy amulet and things like that, and that what you're doing with Amulet. Um so if you could kind of jump into that stuff and kind of tell us what you're doing there, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, I would love to. One thing I do want to touch on real quick, you just hit on the psychological impact of food allergies. And talking about Vesper, even outgrowing peanut allergy, there still being the anxiety around it. So my daughter went through OIT for her nut allergies. So she technically has a maintenance dose of all of her nut allergies that she eats, you know, probably 4 or 5 times a week, just so her body continues to not see them as a threat. I'll be the first to say OIT is great for some people. It's not great for everybody. It's not a perfect solution. But that said, even though technically she can eat peanuts, she still will only eat them in a controlled setting with her maintenance dose. She has no desire to eat them. Like, technically she could eat a peanut butter sandwich if she wanted to, and then she'd have to kind of keep her body calm for an hour. But not once has she done that since she finished OIT, because she still has, that thing in her head telling her, like, I know I eat these in a maintenance dose, but I've seen anaphylaxis and what that looks like because of it. And she just mentally cannot get over that hurdle, which I completely understand. So um, I think that's a whole other element of food allergy that can be really challenging for parents and kids alike.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's such an important factor playing in about raising kids with food allergies. So yes, Allergy Amulet. So about 8 years ago, when I was doing the food allergy consulting, I met the CEO of our company, Amulet. She was just getting it off the ground. Our CEO, Abby, has, similar to Vesper, as a child, she had, I want to say, 21 food allergies, back in the 1980s and 90s. And now she'll joke she's down to 3 food allergens. So she's eliminated all but 3, but they're, peanuts, tree nuts, shellfish, they're big ones. But, while she was finishing a law and master's degree several years ago, she, as a young professional, really struggling with her food allergies, wanting to travel, wanting to be social. She's like, there's got to be a better way to help us manage food allergies, in the world we're in right now. And so she had heard about a Dartmouth chemistry professor who had developed this technology to detect nicotine and marijuana in public spaces, this sensor technology. So she approached him and said, hey, I had this idea for this food allergen sensor. I heard about your technology. Would it be applicable to what I'm trying to do? And he said, actually, I really think it would be applicable. And by the way, I have life-threatening food allergies to tree nuts, so I would love to see this come to fruition. So that was kind of the start of Amulet. I came on board shortly after, and what we have developed is a wearable food sensor that detects for our goal is the top 9 food allergens plus gluten. So you have a wearable component and you have a disposable sampler. So the wearable sensor component is a one-time purchase. The sampler is what you'll put your food sample in, and they're individual to allergens. So let's say you have a known peanut allergy. If you're at a restaurant, You're still going to do all the due diligence you normally do when you're eating out of, call the restaurant ahead of time, look at the menu, talk with the chef, alert your server of your allergen. But then when your food comes to the table, it's kind of another tool in your tool belt to be able to take a sample of your food and test and just get a second gut check to see if your allergen is present in your food.
Mhm.
That's kind of what it does in a nutshell.
I think it's really cool. That's so cool because it's another layer of security, but that's also another layer of like anti-anxiety, that takes that stress off of you psychologically. Because I've had anaphylactic reactions, so I understand that aspect and that fear, and the PTSD is real after an allergen, after an anaphylactic reaction. And so having that, and I'm in a restaurant kitchen, so the fact of going out to eat, it's huge for me because I don't trust people easily because I know what can go wrong.
Yeah.
So I go to places that I know the chefs really well, and but even at that, you still have that little anxiety in the back of your head after you eat something, that did they really do it right? Did they really listen to me? And you don't know it till you eat it. So I think that anxiety level would be way down if you had something like that too, or at least it would be for me. Because if I
Yeah.
get gluten, I pass out. So
Yeah.
that's that started a year ago. It was not pleasant. My husband kept me from falling over. And you never know what reaction is going to hit you. So even if you've never had an anaphylactic reaction or haven't had an instant reaction to an allergen, that does not mean that you couldn't have it then. And then, of course, it has to happen at a restaurant, so that anxiety is so real. And I think that that's what's really cool about this. One, about looking cool, because I went online and I looked at it. So, it looks like jewelry. It doesn't really look like anything that's going to be testing. And then, so you don't feel like you're standing out even more so.
Right.
And then you have that extra layer of comfort of knowing that that allergen's not in there.
I think you bring up a good point of discretion. I mean, you already feel like there's so much attention drawn to you when, for example, you're at a work dinner with colleagues and you just want to be able to order food, but then you have to ask 6 questions to make sure that your food is safe. And there's so much anxiety already around that. So, for us creating the product, it was important that it not only the accuracy be extremely important, but also that the look and feel of it is sleek and discreet. So we want people to be able to kind of wear it however it fits in their lifestyle. So if they want to wear it as a piece of jewelry, as a necklace, they can. If they want to wear it, on their keychain, put it in their backpack or purse, or wear it on a wristband so it looks like, a health fitness tracker, you can do that. And that's been really important to us. A lot of our team members have food allergies or intolerances or children with food allergies. And so it's nice because we can be like, okay, we are, I am the target audience. How does this work with my family? How would my husband carry it? How would I carry it? What do we need to make sure it's safe in my daughter's backpack when she inevitably throws it in the pocket? And so a lot of thought has gone into not just the function, but the form factor as well.
I think that's important. And the fact that you bring that up, that your company itself has a lot of people that obviously this is the target audience for, uh, something that would make life a lot easier for people, and not necessarily easier, but definitely take some worry and anxiety out of it, in my opinion. And because it's so hard when you are at, like you said, when you're at a function with, especially during work and adults or even with kids, you could just have that extra layer of, did you test your food? As a mom, I would be like, I would feel more secure with my kid going out to a restaurant and them being able and be like, did you test your food? Okay, yeah, then it's good and we're good to go. So as a mom, you have that less anxiety as well too.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and every stage of parenthood brings new challenges, right? And so I remember when my daughter was 2.5, the first time I took her to preschool, a lot of parents will drop their kids off at preschool and shed a tear because they're like, oh, they're growing up, they're getting older, they're leaving the nest a little bit. And for me, I sat in my car and sobbed because I was terrified that she can't read yet. Is her teacher gonna forget to check a label? Is she gonna forget to tell her teacher to check the label? Um, and so, in the different stages of parenthood, now I'm in the stage where my daughter just started middle school and she is independent from us a lot, and she's going to more sleepovers and, gymnastics camp and all these things and sleepaway camp. And there are so many instances where she's eating food outside of our control. And so, number one, we've had to make sure we've done a good job of training her on, using her voice and being diligent. But then two, being able to have technology like this where she's going to do all those things. She's going to use her voice. She's going to, check the boxes she's supposed to do. But then to have this extra kind of safeguard to help her ensure that her food is safe is just going to bring me so much more peace. We like to say at our company, food should be a source of fuel, not fear. And, my family, we're foodies. And so when she was little, it was so hard. I mean, even just going to a restaurant and ordering mac and cheese, which seemingly should be very safe with her nut allergies, I literally would just hold my breath the first 5 minutes she would eat, because you just never know what's going on in the back of the kitchen. And, maybe they are incredibly trained on food allergy and maybe they are all over it and maybe they're not at all. I've been at Amulet for a while to see in the different life stages of like, oh, when she's little, this would be so great that I could send to her, send with her to school and her teacher could use it. And now I'm like, okay, now I want to put it in her backpack. And, when she goes forth for the day, she has that kind of safeguard with her. So it's been interesting to see how applicable it is at so many different life stages.
Yes, no, I think that what you all are doing is really awesome. So I know that you have another brand called Amulet Scientific, which is a little bit different than that, but and it's probably nothing that anybody else, but I just find it kind of interesting. So can you kind of just tell us a little bit about it? We won't go too far into it, but what that
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. So Amulet Scientific was formed. So when we started down the path with Allergy Amulet, we were laser focused on food allergy. Um, and then a few years ago, we realized we were sort of getting inbound interest without trying from the food industry, reaching out to us, multiple different food manufacturers and large companies reaching out to us and saying, one example is, hey, we harvest these oats from the field. Before we put them on the shelves, we want to be able to test and see if there is glyphosate or Roundup in the oats. Because, there's been so much about glyphosate in the news about potentially cancer causing and all of the lawsuits and things around it. And we had multiple similar inquiries of people wanting to know kind of further up the supply chain what's in foods before it's consumers are exposed to it. And so based on this interest, we formed Amulet Scientific, which is the base of our testing of how we test and use this. The sensor is the same, but it's designed more to test for food toxins and environmental contaminants in the hopes of, if we're looking at, food safety and food transparency as a whole, to be able to help kind of the whole food industry be a little bit safer before things get to consumers. So, at the end of the day, both of our business units, really the whole goal is to keep consumers safe and understanding what's in their food. So yeah, that's been exciting to kind of start to work on the last few years, because the implications of food safety when you look at, not just things like the Roundup, but if you look at foodborne illness and food poisoning and things, if we can test for things like that and find it earlier, a lot less people are getting sick or exposed to things they shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm. And you can definitely use that from a production standpoint of double checking for gluten and different things like that, allergens that possibly, because I always say ingredients have ingredients. And
Mm-hmm.
so they get processed before they get to the manufacturer sometimes. So the fact that I think sometimes we don't give manufacturers enough credit, because I would say genuinely 80 to 90% of the manufacturers out there, they want you to have a good, safe product. It's not that they're worried about their trade secret or that kind of thing. They genuinely want people to have a safe product. And so I think that that's really cool that you all are doing that. And I could see so many implications, like just having something safe and reliable for them to use would down the line just help us all out at the end of the day, whether you have
Yeah.
food allergies or anything. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's applicable in restaurants. Like if, back of house, if they need to test, batch test for something, but also I'm total side note. We talk about tangents. I'm going to steal your ingredients have ingredients line. I like that. I hadn't heard that before, but it's very true.
Yeah, no problem. Take it. There's no copyright on any of those. But it's true, and that's what I feel like sometimes as people we make our lives more difficult than they need to be, and they're already difficult enough when we have food allergies. But everybody has something that they have to deal with in life, and you know, a parent is a parent. A person living with whatever ailment they have to have. You know, I have autoimmune diseases and food allergies as an example, but I have dyslexia. I have quite a few different other things going on in my head, but I have ADD and different things like that. So, my brain works a little bit different than everybody else's, but it doesn't mean that, I don't want the same thing at the end of the day, which is we all want delicious food. We all want to be able to be safe while we're doing it. We want to just live our lives and be happy. And that's what we want for our kids. So I think everything that you all are doing with the company, but also, obviously coming on here and sharing your story is very valuable. And the things that we learn as we go, I'll look back at it and I'm like, wow, I remember going grocery shopping and finding out that every single thing was, you know, the labels really didn't mean anything because they didn't have to label the allergens and things like that. And then I started doing everything from scratch anyway. And just, I don't know, just the growth and looking at it. And then hearing your all story and coming on here and sharing what you all are trying to do, and kind of catch us up to have a more, fruitful life, is awesome. So I thank you so much for what you all are doing.
Oh, well, thank you. And, thank you for being kind of a beacon of light in this space and encouraging others to be able to cook from home. I know that's for a lot of people that can be really intimidating at first.
Thank you for that. The Allergy Amulet, just quick questions like what's the future for that? Like when will we able to like get a hold of one of those, or how do you get a hold of one of those?
So we actually just announced this last week. We had been hard at work fundraising to get the funds we needed to kick off manufacturing for our amulets, and we can officially announce that we are there. So our amulets are in manufacturing as we speak. We are looking at 2025 we'll be releasing amulet samplers for testing different allergens in kind of like a tiered pathway, so to speak. So the top 9 allergens are in the pipeline. First, we'll be starting with soy and gluten. Peanut will follow shortly after, and then the rest are in the pipeline. And as they're ready, we'll be announcing, the order of allergens from there. But it is on the horizon, and if people go to our website and subscribe for our wait list, we'll be sending out updates and then releases as soon as specific allergens are ready.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so Meg, thank you so much again for taking the time to be on the show. I always end this with one question. Do you have anything else you want to say that was not covered, or do you want to leave like an ending question or thought for everyone that's listening at home?
Yeah, so I think the thought for anyone listening at home is if you have been newly diagnosed or you're hearing this and you're struggling with kind of like the community and where to go, the best thing that I did when I didn't know anything about food allergy and I was trying to figure things out was really plug into the community. I will say, I've said this a couple of times, I wouldn't choose this for my family, but if I'm going to be part of any community, the food allergy community is a really good one. I feel like everyone in the food allergy community that I've encountered just wants to be helpful and wants to be just is service minded and wants other people to feel welcomed and included, and they want to educate and share their knowledge. And so, for me, it was several years ago. So the best way back then was plugging into Facebook groups, but there are so many support groups and food allergy counseling and food allergy coaches and so many great providers and families out there that, feeling like you're not on an island is so much of it. So form that community, because I think that once you can feel like you're not alone in it and you feel like you have a team kind of supporting you, it makes all the difference.
So ditto on the end of that one. Well, I guess we're at the very end of this episode. Again, thank you so much, Meg, for taking the time to be on the show. If you're listening back on this, don't forget to rate whatever platform you're on, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll have all the information on how you can get a hold of Meg and the Amulet team and all the cool things that they're doing. We will definitely link everything down below. I guess we'll talk to y'all next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.